Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alfitra Izzuddin Rasyaad, and today I will explain about chemical fertilizer industry market structure in Indonesia. And this is the overview of our presentation today. The first one is about the introduction. Second one is the current condition of chemical fertilizer industry in Indonesia. And the third one is market structure analysis. And we move to barriers to entry and exit, and then pricing behavior, and the last one is about business and policy implication. Now we move to introduction part. Fertilizer is an important agricultural input, and most farmers in Indonesia still rely heavily on chemical fertilizer as a key for agricultural input. Without chemical fertilizer, crops become more vulnerable to disease and there is a risk of crop failure. And fertilizer industry in Indonesia shaped by a lot of things such as government regulation about the needs to keep food safety of the Indonesia and natural resources availability and another economy of scale. And analyzing the fertilizer market is very important for assessing welfare and food security as well as understanding strategic competition and profitability aspect. This is a snapshot of fertilizer industry in Indonesia. Fertilizer production dominated by state-owned company PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding with total production of 12.25 million tons per year. For clearer analysis, in this presentation, fertilizer Indonesia can be divided into two categories, about urea and other commercial fertilizer or non-urea. And most of urea fertilizer produced by PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding due to subsidiary purpose, and private firms focus on another fertilizer because urea's chemical characteristic limit the product differentiation. So this is about Indonesian fertilizer market size. And chart from eMark Group show that 2024 market share at 2.2 billion US dollar and still growing, and mostly dominated by nitrogenous fertilizer and, for example, urea. Now we move to Indonesian fertilizer market share, and state-owned company holds 60 to 65% of the market share in general, with some big players that following, such as PT Wilmar, PT Saraswanti, PT Jadimas, and PT Saportan Utama. And based on that analysis, chemical fertilizer market structure is an oligopolistic market because only few players in this market. As I mentioned earlier, to simplify our analysis, we divide fertilizer into two categories, urea and non-urea. This section focuses on urea fertilizer, which is largely dominated by state-owned enterprise. So urea production by PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding is even greater than the capacity of many single firms as a whole. And urea is produced in high volume because it is a basic fertilizer that required in larger quantities for almost all type of crop in Indonesia. In 2024, PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding report a produce of 7.6 million tons of urea with a maximum capacity of 9.3 million tons. So approximately 5 million tons of urea were allocated or absorbed to subsidize fertilizer program of Indonesian government. Although in general, PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding still the number one largest producer of fertilizer in general, about the non-urea fertilizer market share, several reports suggest that the non-subsidized fertilizer market is largely controlled by private firms. So Pupuk Indonesia Holding hold less than 30% of commercial fertilizer market share. Now moving to Herfindahl-Hirschman index. The analysis is based on production data due to the limited availability of sales data. So in this calculation, PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding accounts for 79.37 of total production compared to its five largest competitor. And based on the calculation, the Herfindahl-Hirschman index of the Indonesian fertilizer market is 9,469, indicating an extremely high concentrated market. Now about the product differentiation for urea market. So urea fertilizer has low product differentiation compared to another fertilizer. So this segment is dominated by PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding through subsidized scheme, and only few private company produce urea fertilizer, and differentiated only by form and structure, granular and prill, with same nitrogen content of standard 46%. This is related to the chemical properties of urea, which limit the possibility of mixing it with other elements. This may be one of the reasons why the private firms rarely produce urea, as the product offers a little room for product differentiation. Now, for non-urea fertilizer, the products are more differentiated and available in various forms. The macronutrient composition also varies depending on the plant's growth stage and the need of the farmer. And some producers even add micronutrients such as boron and iron, and others to differentiate their products and enhance fertilizer effectiveness for crops. Now we move to the barriers to entry and exit. The first one is massive capital investment. The fertilizer industry require large-scale production facilities, resulting in high initial investment costs. Milling and formulation equipment alone can be worth more than 10 billion of dollar, along with other infrastructure. This makes it difficult for new entrants, allowing only major player to enter the market. The second one is about the access to material. So raw material for fertilizer production, such as minerals and natural gas, have limited access and availability. And the third one is the branding and distribution chain. Another key characteristic of fertilizer industry is the need for a strong distribution network to reach various regions across Indonesia. So, a small player in this case, I think it's difficult to enter the market. And the government involvement. So, fertilizer production inevitability receive inevitably receive close government attention due to the risk of environmental issue and market control, which limit entry to only large player in the industry. So about the exit barrier, due to the high investment value and strict regulation, the risk of sunk cost is significant if unforeseen circumstances force firm to exit the market. Now about the pricing behavior. So we divide it into urea and non-urea. About the pricing type of urea, it is highly regulated because of subsidized scheme and cost-based, and mostly it's like a cost-based pricing. And for non-urea, it's more flexible because a lot of type of fertilizer in the market. And about the pricing competition, urea is relatively low because the government regulated it. And about the non-urea, it's low to moderate. About the product type, because the chemical characteristic of urea, the product type is mostly homogeneous, and for non-urea is more differentiated. And about the strategy, about the urea, the strategy is only about availability and stability. And for non-urea, it's more complicated. It's about maybe about formula and branding and a lot of things. Maybe, for example, like agronomical service. Now about the business implication for from the perspective of privately owned company, several key business implications include the first one is cost efficiency. In high concentrated oligopoly means firm compete through scale efficiency, not aggressive price war. So securing natural gas supply and minerals, improving plant utilization are key to profit driver. And producer have to manage production planning strategically because output decision affect market supply. And the second one is product diversification. So producer can build competitive advantage via product formulation and strong branding and agronomic service so to create a differentiated oligopoly. And the last one is build strong distribution channel to access farmer even in the corner of Indonesia. And about the policy implication from the point of view of Indonesian lawmaker, so Indonesian fertilizer industry is a backbone of national food security, so it's required a strict oversight from the government. About the policy implication, the first one is about maintain stability by setting a maximum retail price for subsidized fertilizer and intervene when market price or distribution become unstable to protect farmer from sudden input cost increase and reduce uncertainty in agricultural production decision. And the second one is about targeted distribution. So low subsidized price can lead to overconsumption and leakage to non-target user. This issue create allocative inefficiency and potential a deadweight loss. To fix this, the Indonesian government have to strengthen their monitor, especially about the distribution chain, and use farmer database to avoid leakage to non-target user. So the conclusion of today's presentation, market structure of the chemical fertilizer industry in Indonesia is an oligopoly market with the characteristic of small number of firms and high barrier to entry, as well as high barrier to exit, and is mostly dominated by state-owned enterprise PT Pupuk Indonesia Holding, whose production is largely absorbed into subsidized fertilizer program. And companies and lawmakers have to work together as fertilizer is an important factor of national food security. And this is my reference. And that's from me. Thank you for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.